morning, everybody. It is our final day of Smarter Working Live month today. I'm Anne Burt, and I'm from the Government Property Agency's Workplace Experience team, and I'm really pleased that you're joining us this morning. I'm going to be your host for the next 45 minutes for this webinar. During February, we've been hosting 10 days of these type of bite-sized webinars, and as I mentioned, today is our final day, and I'm really excited that we've got a great day focused around technology for you today. Just a reminder that next week we have our virtual Smarter Working Live conference day on the 1st of March, where you can immerse yourself in a whole day of thought leadership, exciting topics, lots of interactive sessions. So you can head over to smarterworkinglive.com for the full lineup and to sign up. All of our events are free and they're open to anyone in the public sector who's interested in smarter working. So please help us spread the word. The purpose of this event and all of our events as part of Smarter Working Live is to inform and inspire you. And here at the Government Property Agency, we are really proud to be the natural home of smarter working across government. We're all about creating great places to work for our people so that they can deliver great outcomes for the country. And in the course of our work, we are really privileged to partner with all sorts of organisations who have access to people at the cutting edge of research and thought leadership. And Smarter Working Live is all about bringing that to you, sharing what we're learning, building up wider public sector knowledge and experience, and giving you all access to what we are learning about the tools that help us deliver at our best. So today's topic, as I said, is all around technology, and it's around what can technology do to help greater places to work. Our digital transformation category at the Smarter Working Live Awards is always our most popular one. We have so many entries in this category. There's lots of great work going on across the public sector on this. So what are the latest projects doing and what can we learn from them? In just a moment, I'm going to start off the conversation with our two panel speakers today. But first of all, I just want to invite all of you watching to get involved. So for the first half of this session, I'm going to be having a conversation with the panel and posing my questions to them, but I don't want to be greedy and selfish. I don't want to take all the questions. The second half of this session is over to you. So what would you like to know about? What challenges are you facing that our panel could help you with? What would you like to know about? What are the latest trends that they're seeing that you'd like to know about? So you can pop your questions in the comments box at any time. I will do my best to answer as many questions as I can this morning. I can't promise we'll get to everything, but we will do our best. So you can type your questions in at any time in that comments box. So it's time to get underway with our conversation. I have two panelists with me today to explore this topic of digital transformation. So first up, we have Kean Jones, who has just joined the Government Property Agency this month as our Chief Technology Officer. So Kean, welcome. You're overseeing all of GPA's technology offering to all of our clients. And my second panelist is Gardner, who's Head of Technology at GPA. So looking at things like Gov Wi-Fi, Gov Pass, interoperability, topics I am sure we're going to cover over the next 45 minutes. So welcome, Kean, welcome, Al, and thank you so much for joining us today. Kean, you're a few weeks into the job only. So I know that I'm not going to try and put you on the spot too much. Instead, we're going to have a slightly different format for this webinar for other ones. So I know you're keen to find out from Al, what exactly have you let yourself in for joining GPA?
I am, yes. I am, yes, and that's the conversation we'll be having today.
Fantastic. And Al, you've been around for a bit longer, and obviously you've been overseeing a lot of the work that we're doing directly with our clients in GPA. So hopefully between you two, you kind of have the right questions and the right answers for our audience today.
Hopefully I can answer Kean's questions, and then after that we'll be able to answer everybody else's questions as well. So I think, are you finished with our intro, Anne?
I am indeed. I'm going to hand over to you to have that.
Excellent.
I think it's like a reverse job interview process going on here, isn't it?
Kinda, yeah. So you asked us to talk about how technology is enabling great place to work and interoperability, and I think for us, all of it is about interoperability. It's about that is our main thrust for how we're making great places to work in government. Kean, what do you think?
Yeah, I know from my work as a Smarter Working Assessor that there are a few challenges, and one of the first topics that comes up as a barrier is that accessing government buildings in the first place. It's a frustration for many. How do we address that initial barrier?
So for me, all of it and everything we're doing is about making it so that everyone can use every government building just like it's their normal office. And one of the first things that we're doing around that is our work on Gov Pass. So GovPass is a standard for access control in government that means that we can have a common pass that everybody can use. So in the past, if you went to lots of different buildings, you either needed to get let in specially, or some of us racked up a whole wallet full of passes. So GovPass is going to do away with all of that, and it's also going to improve the security of our access control systems as well.
Okay, so does that mean I can get into any government building with my GovPass?
Not quite. So the start of it is that it means that you can use the same token in any building. So, but you'd still need to have a business reason to be there, and you still need to have your access control thing enabled for that particular building. And so it's not carte blanche to go everywhere, but it means if you've got that need, we can make it work with the one piece of plastic. I think we're also at the moment trying to catch up with the policy work, because this is a big change for the way that civil servants can use government buildings and access them. So between us all, one of the things we've got to figure out is what are the rules for who gets to go where. And as an aside for that, as a plug for me, we've got coming up a GovPass user group that we're planning for April time. So if anybody is on the stream and they're not within our current sphere of interest but would like to come, we'll give you an email address where you can contact us and get in touch, and we'll see if there's space in that for people.
Oh, that's great. It's really important that we are able to understand the user needs, so people should get involved. So I guess the next challenge after getting into the building, the first thing colleagues want to do then is connect to a Wi-Fi network. In the past, when I've been moving between government buildings, I've used Gov Wi-Fi for that. Is that the standard approach going forward?
So it's definitely a big part of our approach. So Gov Wi-Fi, I think, is a brilliant thing, and it gives us a common way, an easy way for people to get access to the internet when they come into a government building, and that's what it was originally designed for. So that as you move around in the estate, you can just open up your laptop and it will connect to the internet. You don't have to go scrabbling around asking people for the code to get onto the Wi-Fi. It will just work. It's brilliant.
So it sounds quite straightforward, but how does that actually work then in the background?
So what has happened is this is work that started out some years ago in the government digital service and has moved over, and GPA sponsor it, and the Cabinet Office are heavily involved in the ongoing development. And what they've done is they've built a network authentication service in the cloud. So that means that anybody in the public sector who runs a network, who wants to make it easy for civil servants and our guests to get access to that network, can sign up to offer a Gov Wi-Fi service in their building. And then the user credentials that are supplied to people who log on can be used in any network that uses that central authentication service. And that means that it's really simple for us to get online as we go around. It's a really neat solution. What in practice it means is that we rely on people who are operating networks in buildings to have done that. So it's not a thing that GPA is delivering into lots of buildings. It's a thing that anybody in the public sector can deliver in their building for the benefit of the people that are coming in. However, it is something that GPA is doing in our building, and it's incredible the sort of the range of places that Gov Wi-Fi is already. So it's in it's in all the offices that we delivered, a lot of other public sector spaces. My favourite one is, I believe it's in a lighthouse in the Shetlands, which is really, really awesome.
Nice.
In practice, it also means that as a civil servant or one of our guests, you just go into any place and you can open up your laptop, get going. And I think the other thing I've kind of mentioned a couple of times, civil servants and guests, one of the things that we found interesting about it is that we've noticed that people don't realise that it's okay for everybody to get to the same network. So we allow both civil servants and non-civil servants to connect to Gov Wi-Fi, because what we're giving them is access to the internet. We're not giving them direct access to sort of sensitive internal IT systems. We're just giving people access to the internet so they can get online, and then their IT kicks in so they can do their job.
Yeah, security must be a concern there. So are there concerns that around security policy that might prevent civil servants from working on Gov Wi-Fi? You know, what's the actual risk there? Does it depend on the how secure the devices and the connection? Is that GPA's responsibility to make sure that's secure?
So Obviously, we have some responsibility, so we certainly ensure that our networks are secure and monitored. But the whole idea of what we're doing with GovWiFi and the way we're looking for people to connect is that security remains the responsibility of the departments as well. So it's up to them to protect their endpoints and to ensure their applications are secure. And that means that they can use GovWiFi in a similar way to the way they're letting people use other internet connections as they go about their business. So here I am at home, using my home Wi-Fi, I can use that. And it is my home department's responsibility to make sure it's safe and secure for me to do that. With GovWiFi, the same is true, although because we're offering it in public sector buildings, we also put a few extra security controls and monitoring around what we do to make sure that you've got that security as well.
And what about the other technologies that are available within these shared spaces?
So you've got in and you've connected to the internet, and you want to use other things as well. And I think the next sort of big lump of stuff for me is around meeting rooms and meeting experiences. You know, we're going to the office to do a thing. Typically, our approach in the meeting room is we want to make the use of space as flexible as possible. So we don't, and this isn't an IT thing, this is a GPA thing. In a way we design the office, we don't have many bookable things. And we'd like the use of the different settings that we provide in the workplace to be quite flexible. But you can't avoid it for all things. So one of the things that we're providing technology for is meeting room booking, so that we can get the best use out of what is that very scarce resource of those set piece type meeting room systems. What's really neat about it, I think, is that we're looking at systems where we've got lots of different combinations and permutations of departments and the sites that they're in and the rooms that they want to be able to book. So delivering a room booking system that can manage with that level of complexity is what sets our challenge and the challenge in the government workplace, apart from some of the sort of more sort of single organisation, single building trying to book rooms. And it's been a really interesting thing to look at how we deliver that system and scale that system as more users come on board across government.
What about other shared services? We got things like using the AV when you're within the buildings and that general user experience. Are we kind of trying to standardise that technology approach?
Yeah, I think we've got a few things in AV space. So a lot of it, again, is set around that sort of big set piece meeting rooms. And most of what we're doing is driven there by the need to share. So we're looking to provide a meeting room that every organisation who comes into that building can use equitably. So what I said at the start, you know, we're trying to make it so that it's easier for everyone to use every building like it's their normal office. Whereas in the past, if you'd gone into somebody else's office, it's their AV and it's hard for you as a guest to come and use. So we want to try and deliver solutions that mean that everybody can use the AV in a meeting room. That means a bit of a compromise, because at the moment it means it's really hard for us to do things like Teams rooms. So what we've been doing for now is focusing on what we sort of call a sort of bring your own device or bring your own codec model for this, where the smarts, the actual communications thing, the Teams or the Google or the Zoom meeting is on your laptop. And then when you come into a room, you're connecting to a screen, you're connecting to a camera that's in the room, you're connecting to speakers and a microphone in the room. They provide you a much better experience in terms of audio quality or in video quality than you would get with just your end user device. But we're keeping the brains of running the video conferencing on that. We're hoping also that means that it's a reasonably familiar experience to people, because again, it's what I'm doing now. I've got my laptop. There's a sort of a platform I've never used before as well, which is also really neat. And I've plugged my laptop into a webcam and to a speaker and some microphones, and away I go. So I'm kind of getting more familiar with how to work like that. I think it's been a bit of a shock for people, as certainly it's very different from how people were working before COVID, and as we're coming back to the office, it's taking a little bit of getting used to. But it does give us that flexibility, and it also gives us the flexibility to keep adopting new platforms. So if we only provided Teams rooms, it's harder for us to adopt things like Hopin and things like that when we're sort of working with those things.
Yeah, so there are a few shared services, and standardization is brilliant, and interoperability will make it much easier for civil servants to work. There are other shared services. So we've been talking about GovPrint. Can you tell me a little bit about how that works?
So yeah, so GovPrint is something that we've been working on for quite a while now, and I'm quite excited about where we're at with it. It is a shared follow me print service. And when I describe it to people, they normally say, yeah, follow me printing, brilliant, we can do that. But the difference and the complicated thing about GovPrint has been it's a shared follow me print service. So that means that lots of organisations can share the same set of multifunction devices, the same set of printers and scanners that are sat in the buildings. And that's not something I've seen elsewhere before. And that's what makes GovPrint different. And we've been working over the last few years with a number of suppliers in industry to get a GovPrint ecosystem that allows us to deliver that into buildings. And it's really neat, and it's now starting to take off. So we've got quite a few people on board in the first building where we delivered that in Thames Colonnade. We've started rolling out in more of our hubs as we move around the country delivering more hubs. And we're now extending it out with clients into their estate that isn't within the hub areas. And it's really interesting to see the sort of the benefits that it gives. And the sort of one example I like is we're working with a new hub somewhere, and lots of different clients are sending small numbers of people there. Some of them are ready to move on to GovPrint, and that's great because it means they've got 2s and 3s of people and one printer that they can all share. But some of the others aren't ready yet, and they're sending 2s and 3s of people, and they've all got to send a printer each to that hub. So the sooner we could get them onto something like GovPrint, the easier it is. And it makes things really easy to deploy as well, because we can deploy GovPrint once, and then everybody that's in that building can use it. And so I think it's got fabulous benefits in terms of the way that printing works, particularly at a time where we're expecting less printing. So we're putting a lot of effort into developing a really interesting printing service, but also we're expecting that we're not going to be as a group printing less. But that's good because it means we've got fewer printers that we're all sharing now. So we're maximising the use of these resources. Hopefully it means we're giving more space to the people and less space to printers in our offices as well. So it's a really neat system, largely enabled by a central cloud service that interacts with a lot of printers. And the thing that we're working on with our GovPrint roadmap is getting that service out to more locations and more organisations so that they can all print with it. And then gradually our hope and our plan is that we can bring more providers into that space as well.
Okay, this is all great, and it makes the process seamless, but there's actually efficiencies that sit behind this as well. You can leverage the benefits of working within services that operate across government departments, which makes things cheaper, allows us to streamline things, and ultimately it provides a much better experience for civil servants. And we've got some really good news. Lots of feedback has come in from civil servants about the subject and making sure we have that seamless experience. That has been really listened to, and this has resulted in the support from the highest level across the civil service. The Civil Service Operations Board has approved a one estate property technology mandate. I'm lucky to have this as one of the first things I'll be working on in the GPA, which is excellent. So that mandate outlines the support for great shared by default places to work, removing those artificial boundaries using common technology sets and services, all the things we've discussed, breaking down the barriers between departments, improving that productivity and enabling the sharing of space going forward. But what does that actually mean in practice?
So I think there's two things it means for me. So it's everything that we've been talking about before. So it makes it easier for civil servants to be able to do their job productively wherever they need to be, whichever building, actually when they're at home, when they're in a partner site, when they're in a government office, when they're in any office that they need to be in. It makes it easier for them to do their job. The other thing I think it's doing is it's making it much easier for civil service organisations to work together as well. So the other side of interoperability, as well as being able to interoperate with the technology that you find, is being able to to work together better as civil service departments. And then we can bring people together in these spaces that they can use flexibly, and they can work effectively to solve really challenging, knotty problems for the benefit of the public, which is kind of exciting. And that's all underpinned by the stuff that we've been talking about. So by having Gov Wi-Fi, so you can get online easily when you turn up to a building to do your job, by having things like Gov Pass, so you can get in where you need to be. Gov Print is like, it's really weird because it's one of the final barriers to all of this, because it's been a lot easier for us to get the Wi-Fi out there and to work on the access pass, but this sort of stumbling block of, yeah, but we'll need to print some stuff. And GovPrint's the thing that makes that easy to move people into a building flexibly. We're working on this sort of and delivering shared networks across our sort of suite of hubs. So if you do need a bit more flexibility than just Gov Wi-Fi, and we've got ways of bringing that sort of tighter integration with departments' IT systems and extending that into buildings for them. We've got the space booking and meeting room booking systems that we talked about, the AV standards that we're working on that means that people can work and share AV systems equitably, not just in meeting rooms. And I forgot to mention, as we were talking before, we are working on standards for different work settings throughout the building, different collaboration spaces, task settings, and all of the things that GPA is building into the design guide. We're also working on making it easier to get support. So we're providing a support service so that you've got a single portal to access information, not just about IT, but also about the building. And the thing that we're starting on now is to look at how we might provide better, more flexible sort of first line support on site through the provision of shared tech bars. And that's going to be a really interesting one, because at the moment, tech bars have been really popular across the building. But if you go to somebody else's tech bar, they normally can't help you. So what we're trying to find is a way that we can help each other through that tech bar network, so that we can give good first line support to people who've got problems with their IT when they come into work. Because it would be a bit of a shame if you've gone all the way to the office and we've got all this place and this great IT, but you've forgotten your charger or your laptop's not working and you just need some help and you can't get going.
That all sounds fantastic. And GPA will be leading on delivering this one estate property technology mandate. In the coming weeks and months, we'll be reaching out to departments to complete an initial interoperability technology maturity assessment. So that's similar to the approach that was taken with smarter working. We'd be asking for a lead from each department to act as the single point of contact to work with us. The self-assessment will allow us to baseline the maturity of the different spaces and different departments, and will allow us to share best practice when we get the feedback in. Initially, we're engaging with the Chief Operating Officer level to gather those points of contact, but we'll have an engaged, smarter working community that can help us through this as well. Our ask, the call to action, and our ask for departments is to engage in this work, get the initial assessments done, and then continue to work with us to improve that user experience for all civil servants, which we've run through today. This is a big enabler for effective, smarter working, and this will improve things for all civil servants. This is really exciting work. We've done a lot of talking now, so we'll bring Anne back in to see if we've got any questions.
Thank you so much, Kean and Al. Kean, now you've heard about the remit of your new job, are you suddenly having second thoughts at all?
It's right up my street. It's fantastic.
Excellent.
I think it's just making things better for everyone. It's
fantastic.
Great.
And I'm really pleased to hear you shouting out to that smarter working community, because we all know how much technology has been integral to enabling so much of smarter working. And I loved Al's analogy about this is kind of the infrastructure, the backbone that lets it all happen. It really is. And some of it is probably less glamorous sort of work, I think, probably it's fair to say. So some of those things probably will need a lot of plodding away at and keeping going at. But I think some of those early successes you're already having, so some mentions in the comments about how much difference Gov Wi-Fi makes in the buildings that people are working in, we can see the results of that already. So it sounds really exciting, and I'm glad you give a heads up to our audience today about that work that's about to start. We've got about 15 minutes or so for questions from the audience. We've got quite a few coming in. So I'm going to start right back at where you started in your conversation about people trying to get into a building and GovPass. So Lorraine's asked a question about, is GovPass just for civil servants, or does it extend to other classifications of public servants in the arm's length bodies as well? Or kind of where's the boundaries on that one?
So it is designed for civil servants initially. So the system was sort of conceived of to help us manage that general purpose office estate. Now, obviously, we do have executive agencies, arm's length bodies within that estate. So where they fit within there, then they're absolutely within the scope of GovPass. What we haven't been doing yet is looking to extend it out to things like local government and things like that. Although, you know, it's entirely possible, and I think we've looked with the devolved authorities at perhaps having a similar system, so the same technology rather than GovPass, but also we need to understand the benefits of all of those things and how growing a thing like GovPass might work beyond the initial sort of central government sort of remit that we started with.
Thank you, Al. That probably leads really neatly into Sarah's question about that GovPass user group that you mentioned and that call out. So kind of maybe if you might explain a bit more about what the purpose of that group is, and then kind of maybe what type of people you might be looking for. Would there be room for people who aren't currently in the scope maybe to come and join?
A good question, because I probably should. So I should have explained it better. I think there's already quite a lot of people that we've got our sites on who the GovPass team engage with. Really, the idea is to work at a practitioner level. So I'm expecting the people who are managing access control systems, people who are involved in the installation and operation of access control systems, both technologists, but also operational security types, who are likely to have an interest in GovPass and how it might affect them. Certainly, you know, the thing that I think is really important is that the remit is that sort of civil central government sector. But it's not limited just to the buildings that GPA is onboarding. We are interested in extending GovPass where it is relevant out across departments' wider estate as well.
So in terms of the sorts of people who might be good potential people to come and join your user group, is there any sort of types of roles that you'd be looking for, or people kind of from particular backgrounds or organisations?
So if you're like I say, if you're a person who is actively involved in the implementation of access control systems, or actively involved in that sort of operational security teams in departments who are responsible for running access control systems, I think they would be ideal candidates to, if they're not already linked into our wider network, they would be ideal candidates to get in touch.
Fantastic. And just a shout out, because I know not all of our audience will be those people in those roles, but if you know the person in your organisation who is, we'd say a plea to you, if you know who they are, please do get in touch with them and pass on that email address I've put in the chat. Because as Al said, we're really looking to make sure we've got that wide reach and making sure we've got all those users, as many users as we can involved in that one. So thanks for clarifying that one, Al. Now we've got into the building, we've used our pass, we've got in. The next thing you talked about was Gov Wi-Fi, and we had a question from Mark about how that actually operates. So kind of people moving around from building to building, does it actually work seamlessly as that, or do they have to sign in at each location that they're going to?
So you do not have to sign in separately at each location. So what happens is the first time you want to use Gov Wi-Fi, you have to sign up for some login credentials. And there's two ways of doing that. You can send a text message and you'll get a username and password back, or you can send an email and you'll get a username and password back from that. And that username and password will then stick with you for as long as you want to use it. If you don't happen to use it for a year, it will sort of time out, I think, but I use mine like most every day. So that single username and password is the same. And just like when you walk into your home, your device will connect to the Wi-Fi and negotiate that connection, and you don't have to keep re-entering your login details for that to happen. And the same is true of Gov Wi-Fi. Everywhere there's a Gov Wi-Fi network, your device will find it and just log in. And so, you know, most of the time I don't even notice that happening. By the time I've opened my laptop, it's usually already logged on and I'm ready to go. And it's, yeah, and it definitely, in my experience, provides that seamless experience of wherever I go, when I've got my government devices, or even my personal devices that I've signed up to use Gov Wi-Fi, because that is acceptable as well. It's just there.
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
And I can support that. I've used Gov Wi-Fi on my government device and my personal device as well for a number of years, and it just seamlessly works across departments. One of the things I was particularly impressed with when I went into the GPA office initially last week was the QR code's actually on the tables. You can just scan and it automatically takes you to the place where you can sign up and to get Wi-Fi, which again is improving that seamless user experience. You don't have to find the page. Actually, it just takes you straight there. I think these little things actually make a big difference to people.
Absolutely. It raises expectations too, because they expect it to work seamlessly every time, I imagine, and they forget the old-fashioned ways when we used to scrabble around for cables and plug in certain things and certain desks and that kind of thing that weren't too many years ago, were they? Those expectations raising. So thinking a bit about those expectations raising and what's coming in the future, we've had a couple of probably interrelated questions. So Sarah has asked about incorporating future technology into meeting rooms, things like the metaverse or hologram attendees. And then Andy Lake has kind of asked a more general question about kind of what would you like to see coming over the horizon? So is that on your plans yet, or what else is on your horizon if not the metaverse?
So perhaps not the metaverse yet, but I think there's particularly in meeting room technology, there's lots of really exciting things coming up that are a bit closer to us. And a lot of our strategy is about working with our partners in industry so that we can try and deliver some of these exciting things that are coming up into the workplace. So I know that Microsoft has got, for instance, a load of exciting changes to the way that Teams is going to work. And I'm very keen that we find ways to deliver that into our offices so that everybody can benefit from it. I think, we keep talking about what's the draw of the office. Is like, I need to give you something, not necessarily better, because my view is that you should have really good IT at home as well, but different than what you've got at home. That's things that we can only do in the office that perhaps we can't do at home, that are a draw, but in a useful and flexible way that are supporting us to do our job. I think for me, there's lots of exciting things that we could do around the AV space, and I'd like to see us start building out on what we can do there, and not just thinking about AV as a screen and webcams and microphones, but how AV and that kind of technology is supporting us when we are collaborating, and the things, the reasons that we've come to the building, whatever it is that we've come, there's the draw to get our teams there, is what we're trying to support with the technology that we put in.
But certainly what we're looking at now as well is actually making sure we've got those basics right across government. But, on the interoperability side, there are varying degrees of approaches happening. And what we're doing, reaching out with this maturity matrix, is actually trying to baseline that, get all the basics right. And then that will provide us with a brilliant platform to actually develop from, take forward.
Brilliant, thank you. And Jez has asked probably a very similar question, but is kind of interested in any innovative technology that might help enhance smarter working. So is there anything that you think might help people kind of understand the range of choices they've got of work settings and help them with all of those different work settings that they've got? Because I think that's kind of the step we're at now. People are experimenting and trying out lots of different things. So are you learning anything through all of that about what technology is particularly helping people make use of those?
We're learning bags. So I think there's all sorts of things I can get excited about in terms of technology. But actually, one of the things that I'm excited about at the moment is that now people are coming into our offices and using them more. What we've started to do is embark upon a program of user research to try and find out more about what it is that people need when they're coming into the offices. And that's the technology I want to chase down, is things that are supporting the work. It's still early days though, because it is still, we've got a smallish number of hubs, and an early phase of what's been a big change in the way people are using our offices. So I really want to get on top of those kind of things to find how we can identify the right types of technology that are going to support the work that people want to do. That said, there's loads of other things that I'm kind of interested in terms of what we might do in the future with wayfinding, with environmental monitoring to improve comfort in offices. We've been talking to people around what they're doing with things like the increased use of power over Ethernet to provide functionality in an office, not just not just about powering network kit, but powering lights, powering desks, and giving us much more control over those systems so that we can save energy, we can understand energy usage much better, all of which is super exciting. We need to understand what our user needs are and how we fit those kind of technologies into what is a fairly complex estates modernisation programme as well.
And it's about linking those smarter working practices and technology together to provide that all-round experience, using the right spaces for the right activities and actually having the right technology to support that activity in those spaces too.
Fantastic. Probably a slightly more practical question for you now. We've been doing lots of excitement about the future, and something that I know we've been grappling with as we were trying to look at how we host these Smarter Working Live events. A question from Stephanie about accessible platforms across the whole of government, and a note that she's had to log on via her personal device. Thank you, Stephanie, for persevering and trying to
brilliant
on doing that, and we appreciate that. And I think again, it's kind of probably a wider question than just for GPA, isn't it? It's something, but that interoperability conversation, I think, is there any consideration in that around how we can kind of make sure everyone has an equitable experience?
I think there's a few things there. So you sort of hit the nail on the head from the start. So it is a wider thing than GPA. So GPA is providing some underpinnings of interoperable technology that allow some things to work, or could allow some things to work. And we need to keep those deliveries, making sure we're enabling the widest range of technologies that we can. But also we do rely on the rest of government to sort of think about how they're building their organisations and their IT systems to enable these ways of working as well. So if we've locked down systems that mean that people can't use it, then it kind of makes interoperability a bit harder. Obviously, that needs to balance against the security needs of the departments, but I think it is stuff that we need to be progressive together on to get good solutions for everybody.
And Kean, obviously you've come from a different part of government recently. Do you think that's something that there's an awareness of in other parts of government too?
Yeah, there's certainly, again, this is one of those things that comes up. I'm not surprised there's a question about it, because there are challenges working across government. And although we are looking at the kind of the maturity of the technology and the standardization, actually, it's not about all you necessarily using the same platforms. It's about making sure those platforms can interact seamlessly as well. And again, in some of the other work we're doing, it's not necessarily about using the same suppliers. It's making sure that those suppliers can interact and their interface is available, so the user experience is seamless, but actually there might be lots of different things sitting behind that. And certainly on using single platforms to work on across government, that is something that's on the agenda and it's something we are working on. And
I almost forgot, we're not the only ones working on interoperability. So GPA's work within the One Estate programme is part of a wider interoperability programme that is being run by CDDO, the Central Digital and Data Office. And there are 3 other strands. I'm going to have to try and remember them now. So there's One IT that is looking at a broader set of IT challenges, including things like how to set standards for the use of things like Office 365. There is One Data that is looking at how we can improve data sharing across government. And there's One HR that's looking at how we sort of can improve some of our HR systems as well.
Thank you. So what Gov everything and One everything seems to be the new theme of things, it feels like at the moment. And we've got one final Gov initiative that we've sort of touched on, we haven't mentioned lots about yet. A question from Lorraine about Gov Flex and kind of how all the different things we mentioned fit in with that, because I know that's kind of still in its early stages, isn't it? Is there any more you can share about that?
So I can share what I know. So GPA is definitely working on a thing called GovFlex, which is about how we can sort of enable more flexible access to workplaces for people. At the moment, we've been working up a set of pilots that we can run around GovFlex. Those pilots, what we're trying to do is to change the IT systems that we've got as little as possible to support the pilots, but to use the pilots to learn about what we need from an IT system to make GovFlex work most effectively.
Wow. Unbelievably, we are hurtling towards the end of our session now, so I'm afraid that's the end of our time for questions from the audience. I feel like we've whizzed through at least half a dozen really big topics in that time, so I'm conscious we've skimmed the surface. So I will flag up to say if there was something that you wanted to know about, or a question that's just occurred to you, I'll pop something in the chat in a minute so you can get in touch with us. You've also got the PropTech email address that you can use to reach us. But I'm afraid that was the last question. So a massive thank you to Kean and to Al for sharing their time and their insights with us this morning. We've learned so much about all those different initiatives and how they kind of interrelate and how they're part of a much wider conversation going on about how technology is going to really, really change how and where people work and open up lots more opportunities for people. I love the idea that, you know, we're looking at every aspect of it, down to the very small details of how individuals experience things, right up to the big picture stuff. I think looking at it in all those different ways will really help. As I said, this is our final day of Smarter Working Live in this new format that we've tried this year. We were experimenting and trying to give you these quick bite-sized webinars to give you something insightful and something informative to spark some ideas in your head and give you something to take back to your own organisations. If you could spare us literally 5 seconds to give us some feedback on these, we would really appreciate it. Just got 3 quick questions to ask you. It's in the chat at the moment, so you can just quickly give us some feedback. Let us know how these were for you. And don't forget, we have 2 final webinars for the rest of today on the theme of digital transformation to round off our Smarter Working Live month sessions for you. So at midday, we have Jay Epton from Adobe, who'll be talking about digital workflows. And then at 2 p.m, our final session of the month, Justin Powell and Peter Eady from Bytes will be talking about modern workplace, power your people anytime, anywhere. I don't think they mean literally power them up, like plug them in and go. At least I hope not. If you head over to the reception area, it'll give you the full details of the lineup. So midday and 2 p.m. are our final sessions today. And just one final plug for our conference day on the 1st of March. We've really tried to make it relevant to you this time. So Mark has put something in the chat around a Slido poll that we're running. So you get to vote on themes that you'd like for the day. So you've still got time to vote for what you'd like our hackathon topic to be on that session. So please do give us your views. Let us know what you would like to hear about on that Smarter Working Live conference day. So this was my final webinar. So I just want to say a massive thank you to any of you who joined us over these 10 days of events. And on behalf of GPA and Gov News, thank you so much. We really hope that you've got something useful out of it and that it helps you think about smarter working in a new way for your organisations and has given you some inspiration, given you something different to think about during this month. It's been an absolute pleasure, and there's been a whole host of people behind the scenes working on these sessions and events, so I couldn't possibly name them all because there's been so many, but a huge thank you to everyone who's been involved, and we really love having this smarter working community coming together, sharing ideas and sharing knowledge. It's been a privilege for me, and I just want to thank you all and say enjoy the rest of your days, everybody.
Thanks, Paul.